Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our Sabbath School lesson study. We are on the 5th lesson of studying the book of Genesis. My name is Constance Ncube, and I'm going to leave this time to my fellow panelists to introduce themselves.
Greetings, friends. Once again, welcome to our study. My name is Obed Kwacha.
I'm Begi Maposa. Welcome to our lesson for the week.
Hello, my name is Jason. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together to learn about the lesson of the Tower of Babel. We ask that you may guide us as we spread out throughout the world to take the message that you've given us and intervene if you have to. I pray for this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. The theme for this week's lesson is All Nations and Babel. And our theme of consideration, verse for today, is Genesis 11, verse 9. And it says, therefore, its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. That's Genesis 11, verse 9. Now, before we go to the lesson proper, perhaps let's give an overview of the lesson and then get to it.
Okay, so this week we are on Genesis chapter 11. Mm-hmm. Last week we were looking at the flood. And this week we are kind of looking at the aftermath of the flood, the continuation, of course, because last week we looked at what Noah did after he left the ark, and we noted that he worshipped. So today we are going to see how then evil once again started to come up. Remember last week when we were reading Genesis chapter 6, we said the Lord repented because evil was so widespread to the extent that God decided to start all over. Mm-hmm. And just after the flood, a few phases or a few generations, we are seeing evil coming up again. So our focus today is Genesis chapter 11 mostly, the historical, how it happened. And of course, we need to have an life application as well as the end time dimension of the issues that come up in Genesis chapter 11. That's what I got from the lesson.
Yeah.
That's so true. Also changing our focus from focusing on individuals as maybe the major determinants of the history generally of mankind. And mm-hmm. we are moving now to people in groups, as it were, or nationalities, as it were. I think that's the other aspect of the lesson that we will be interrogating during this lesson.
Oh, yes. Now, before we go to the groups and nations per se, I would like us to start with the personality of Noah himself. Okay. Maybe, who am I going to send? Begi, if you're going to go to Genesis 6, verse 9. And who else? Genesis 9:21, Jason.
Okay. Genesis 6, verse 9, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm reading from verse 9. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God.
Okay. 21, I'm reading from the New English Translation. Mm-hmm. And it says, when he drank some of the wine, he got drunk and uncovered himself inside his tent.
Oh yeah, from last week, we were talking about Noah having found grace with God and Noah being righteous. And now we are talking about Noah in a different state. So I would like us to talk about that more and what that should tell us about how flawed we all are and why we need God's grace every moment of our lives.
Okay, I thought Jason wanted to start.
Jason, you can go first.
I don't know why you thought that.
No, I can come through.
Okay, fine. I was just going to say, one thing I like about the Bible is that it slaughters all its heroes. The people are real. They're not too bad or too good to be unbelievable. I myself, in my own experience, have found grace in God's eyes. And I myself have found myself uncovered, naked, maybe not literally, but figuratively speaking, I've found myself at the bottom and wondering how I got there. And so it's encouraging to encounter in the book people who were flawed just like I am, and yet because God didn't give up on them and they didn't give up on God, they found hope.
You know, the Bible is quite a summary of a lot of things. There are some silent lessons that come out that probably are not necessarily, maybe the Bible is trying to give you the idea of what then happened and the rest. But you can quickly pick that at least Noah was a husbandman, not stealing the soil away.
Yes, he was. He
Yeah.
was.
But then maybe try and answer your question in a more direct way, that we found Noah in chapter 6 being a just man that walked with God. And here in chapter 9, we find him over drinking to the extent of getting drunk, which maybe first lesson is that what Corinthians say, that let him who say I stand take care lest he falls.
Yes.
Yeah, all of us, as long as we are human, just like Noah was. Remember, this man preached for 120 years.
Much.
And he was building and he was preaching and building. So he was a man not only of words, but actions. He was acting upon what he believed in, constructing the ark, and he obeyed everything. Last week we actually extolled him. You remember, even when the rains were finished, he didn't leave until he got an instruction to leave the ark. That was Noah for you. Just after that, someone was saying of the little that he has preserved in the ark, he had to take one and to slaughter on the altar there.
Yes.
But this is the man who is now getting into a situation where he is also sinning, as it were, or doing something that God had instructed not to be done. So that's one lesson that comes to us, that no matter how much efforts we have conducted, for example, how much we have led God's people, we can also do certain things. But one lesson that also comes, the grace of God that is in chapter 6, verse 8, still found him.
Yes.
So
Exposed.
if you falter in your walk with Jesus, don't give up. The same grace of God that found you in your chapter 6 can still find you in your chapter 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by his choice of words. He says Noah found himself over drinking. Lest I step on a landmine, I'll not pursue that line of thought any further than he has. But rather, I'm intrigued by also the idea of nakedness. And ever since men stopped to be naked and unashamed, I think it's Genesis chapter 2, if I'm not mistaken, men has always, whenever man has been naked, bad things have happened.
Okay.
Initially, right from the Garden of Eden, after eating of the tree, both husband and wife were naked and they were ashamed and they hid when God came. And you go even to the children of Israel, when Moses had, according to them, overstayed at the top of the mountain, they asked Aaron to build for them a golden calf, and they were naked dancing around it, and bad things obviously followed that. We can trace that right through human history, even up to after the death of Jesus, when Peter led the rest of the disciples to go fishing instead of to the upper room initially. When they were fishing, Peter is said to have been naked. He had to first of all dress. And I'm thinking the concept of being naked hasn't been portrayed in good light ever since that day in Genesis. So even Noah here, we find Noah naked, and for some reason someone else gets cursed for Noah's nakedness. And I just thought maybe in looking at the character of old man Noah there, we can bring this into perspective and then better understand the Bible when it says that Noah was righteous in his generation.
Okay.
Because there are people that were righteous, I would contend, across generations. Maybe I would talk of Daniel. Daniel's righteousness was interrogated by his peers, and he was found righteous. And even today we interrogate Daniel, and we still haven't found much to blame on him. So there is that maybe near comparison, as it were, and it might help us understand some of Noah's behaviors, and of course in the context of the grace that is freely then given or extended to us, it becomes good news.
Yeah, so but also it says to us we should avoid being naked, going out naked. I'm not talking about miniskirts. I'm thinking of a church father. I think his name was Oregon. He lived in North Africa, and I think his father was had been arrested for being a Christian or something of the sort, and he wanted to go out and stand with the person, but he wasn't dressed yet, and his mother told him to put some clothes on before he went out, and it was a lesson that was important to him. To not, even when you're going to do something good, don't go out of the house naked. I'm speaking figuratively, but to bring that to life today, it's I've seen it happen a lot of the time that some people behave and do undignified things. And they think that's justified because what they're doing is right. So, but God has not created us to be undignified. He is, in all our dealings, we should always remain dignified and also respect the dignity of the next person.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Let's go to the blessing and cursing that you were talking about that came as a result of Noah's nakedness. Probably I'll read Genesis 9 verse 24, and it says, "And Noah awoke out of his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." Now, I don't know whether it's coincidentally or what, but I think it was on Thursday, 3 days before this presentation, I was called by my father. My mother had told her whatever that I was planning to do. So he was specifically calling to say, I'm calling to pronounce blessing on you.
Okay.
So what I want to know is,
Okay.
as in relating to that. So what I want to know is, we are seeing this concept of blessing and cursing coming from a father to his sons here in the Bible. Does a parent's blessing or pronouncing of a place or proclamation or whatever impact or determine the fate of a daughter or a son? We do have fathers in this platform, and I'm happy for that. And what is the significance of these curses and blessings?
And being a father certainly became a crime in this neighborhood.
This platform, yes.
So asked differently, you are asking us if I can be a bad boy and blame it on my father, or I can ascribe to my parents or to my father specifically, since you singled him out, for my failings or for my misdemeanor or for my delinquency. I can say, but I can't help it, my father.
He cursed me.
Is that what?
Yes.
I needed to understand that. Kwacha seems to be raring to give us a response.
I think you're going to then provide the answer. Let me first put it this way. Maybe let me read first. Chapter 6, verse 4.
6:12 of Genesis
Exodus.
or Exodus.
It says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. There's another one in Deuteronomy, I didn't put it here. It says that honor thy father and thy mother so that it may be well with you.
Okay.
That was God saying. So, parents are able to, not parents, but God can give you a blessing or remove a blessing when you don't honor your parents. So it's God blessing you through the parents' words. I think we find a lot for example, in the story of the blessing of Jacob. And I remember that story, Jacob and Isaac, where the father wanted to bless, not Esau, not Isaac. The father, who is Isaac, wanted to bless Esau, who was the firstborn, ended up blessing Jacob. So that kind of a blessing would be more like a father, God putting his blessing on you through the parents. So if you're in good books with you, with God, with your parents, that is, then God gives you that blessing.
Okay.
So we find a lot of that. I think it's. I should admit that maybe we should look deeply into it. Even our viewers and us here, we should probably research more on it, on to what extent can a parent's anger on me affect me. But what I can safely say is that if probably you angered your parent, first, you should make it right. We can't run away from that. If there's any listener here or anyone here who are not in good books with their parents, you should make it right with your parents. If you have tried to make it right with the parents, and the parents maybe is refusing and the like, I am sure you can go still to God, and through God's forgiveness, he can still give you that blessing. But maybe the lesson unto us, even Jesus tried to teach about it. He inferred, it was not direct. When he says that you are taking things that belong to the parents and you are bringing them here to church, and you are saying that's korban now. So Jesus was rebuking a behavior where we try to skit around our parents and saying, we as long as I'm right with God. Mm-hmm. So there's a lesson that be in good books with them, like what you did. And you were blessed. Congratulations, because God the parents has given you a blessing for whatever that you were calling for. So the lesson that comes to us is that we should not try to run away from the parents. Our parents, whether they are drunk right now, or whether they do not worship. I've seen some religions where you actually sign an affidavit that even if I die, I should not be buried by my heathen parents. I should be buried by my Christian parents. Okay. And sometimes we call mother, father to, I'm not saying that's wrong, at church you say, mother, father, referring to some people that we worship with. But let's remember we've got parents, some of them very far away in the jungle there. We can't even take our cars there. Mm-hmm. So the lesson to me is that we should be right with the parents, because their anger may affect our things. If I'm reading the Bible right, it says, so that it may be well with you. Mm-hmm. I know I have not really answered, but I've tried to.
Yes, you have.
No one has accused me of fatherhood yet, so I don't have anything to say. I don't know.
But I think I'm not in disagreement with what Kwacha was saying. But I also feel that we need to not be drawn into some kind of superstitious understanding of a father's blessings or curses upon us. Mm-hmm. I think it's more, I don't know how to describe it without confusing myself and the people listening. I think it's more a descriptor of the kind of character that one is. When a father pronounces curses, as it were. Mm-hmm. I'll take the example still of Isaac on Esau and Jacob. Mm-hmm. What Isaac uttered to Jacob and not to Esau did not really make Esau's character what it was. Mm-hmm. But Esau had always been Esau, loving that kind of life that he loved, and the strange women probably, since even his marriage, attest to that. So it's not so much like we then get put into a box where we cannot maneuver ourselves out of. And we can then safely be wayward and say, what can I be? My parents are the ones that pronounced this curse upon me, and that kind of a thing. Maybe it's more of a descriptor of the kind of person that one is, more than it is fixing their destiny, as it were. I don't know if I'm coming across clearly or not. I'm trying to say. I'm not disputing the fact that parents can and do wish us good, and that good can be translated into. But more of it has to do with our choices, ultimately, than it has to do with what our patriarchs would have said upon us. Because I'm sure there are so many people out there that maybe have not had the privilege of parents pronouncing blessings upon them, but they have gone on to excel and be great people in the world. I'm sure we can, if time allowed, bring some big figures in the socio-economic or political world that have gone on to excel. But we know that their parents actually, the background speaks.
Your parents have a say in your life, but they don't have the final word.
Okay. So now I want us to bring you back to Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. It's a scenario of a parent now who is God, who was pronouncing blessings and curses. Yeah. In verse 15, he says, I'll put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed, and it shall bruise your head, and thou shalt bruise his head. We know that this happened when Adam and Eve had disobeyed their parent God, and he sort of like proclaims a curse on them. But embedded in the curse was a very big blessing in it that I don't think even at that time they could conceptualize that. Are we seeing the same principle here when Noah is doing the same thing to his children?
Maybe I thought before we skip the gun to go there, we need to also see what happens. That is the progression of the story itself. Because what I read from your question is there a blessing in the curse, if I'm right?
Was it there?
Yeah, like it happened in Genesis. So in the story, this is precisely what happens. And I'm sure we read, and our viewers could also read the story. Noah drank, he became drunk, and then one of the sons, who is Ham, then saw the father, and he went about talking about it, and the brothers heard it, and then they covered themselves, and then they saw, they covered the father. So they went backward, they were in reverse when they went to cover the father. And then when Noah became sober again, he pronounces a curse on Canaan, who was the son of one of the sons of Ham. Not really on Ham, but one of the sons of Ham. So now let's go to the question. So the question is saying, is that case, is there any blessing that would come from that case? Okay, this is what I think on that particular question. How did a case become a blessing? So the case that was pronounced there, which has been misused by some circles, was really referring to, remember the Israelites going to take over Canaan, where they then subdued the Canaanites and removed them from their land. It was the fulfillment of that prophecy. So how did that turn out to be a blessing? If you read somewhere in Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah chapter 58, when it was talking about the Sabbath, and then it says any Gentile who would also stick to the Jewish religion would be acceptable in the Jewish community. So sometimes when we read the New Testament, we hear of the gospel coming to the Gentile world, and we think it's a new concept, even in the Old Testament. So how did it become a blessing? Those Canaanites were being displaced, at least he had an opportunity to mingle with the Israelites and get to know the true God who is in heaven. So the presence of Israel, although they were declared to be servants to Israel, but remember, even in the people like, who is this one in the story of David? The Uriah. The Uriah in the story of David was not actually an Israelite. I think he was a Hittite, if not mistaken. It's a good example of someone who, because of the presence of Israel within their land, serving in the army of Israel, he also managed to see and to worship the true God. So it kind of turned into a blessing.
You know, the scariest thing about some people is that they have children.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if you've met some people in life, and you see them with kids. Think this person is a parent. I mean, you have to ask yourself the question: what sort of person would do what Ham did? I mean, you see your father drunk and exposed, and instead of doing something about it, you go out and chat, have a chat about it with your brothers. I mean, would it have been that difficult for Ham to pick up, I don't know, as a blanket or a coat or something and throw it on his father? Why go out and talk about it and not have done anything? It's almost as if he lacks initiative at best. If we're to really try to excuse him, like say he lacks initiative, or is the kind of character that I mean he doesn't care about his father's dignity, and if you don't care about your parents' dignity, what sort of children are you going to raise? I think all of us, in general, most normal people don't go hanging dirty laundry out in public, especially not your parents. And so when you try to enter Ham's head and try to figure out how he thinks and how he processes stuff, and then you think, okay, not only is this guy like this guy has kids. So what sort of kids are going to come from a father like that? So which is, I guess, which it comes up to what Ubegi was saying, that your parents have a huge influence on the sort of person you'll be. And we all carry a bit of home with us wherever we go, you know. Even some things we take unconsciously from the homes we come from, and they go from generation to generation. So it takes some time. So when I read this, Noah is not. It's not to say that if Noah hadn't said this, Canaan would have turned out okay. Yeah, Noah is. He's reporting in the past what's going to happen in the future. Saying, no, this is the sort of person. If you're like this, your kids are in serious trouble. Because also when you look later on in verse 26, it says, he also said, worthy of praise is the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God enlarge Japheth's territory and numbers. May he live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his slave. So, he doesn't bless or curse the fathers, the guys who are intimately involved. He blesses the God of Shem, and then he pronounces a curse upon the son of Ham. So it's kind of different from maybe your dad exploding when you failed, that sort of thing.
I think something that Jason brought out that I want to just emphasize in a few minutes is that what Noah was doing was as it were to say what was going to happen.
Okay.
He was not determining it, but it was more like a prophecy. Depending, I think that's the reason why he ended up singling out Canaan. So he was saying, "You shall be." If you read verse 27 in my version, it actually says, God shall enlarge, God shall. So by reading that, you can see that it was God who was enlarging, and it was God that was going to make these ones servants. And it is not because his pronunciation is the one that determined it, but he was just predicting what was going to happen. And a similar story we find in the story of Jacob in Genesis chapter 49. When he was pronouncing what Judah shall be, it is not like he was determining that I want Judah to go this way. God had actually revealed to him that this is what Judah is going to be like. So that one is very key as well. Sometimes what Baker was talking about, that we end up thinking we are predestined to do this. No, it's actually a prediction of something because of the choices. Because this didn't start here. Outside I was just thinking the challenge was that in the ark some guys jumped in because of their fathers. And I was reading a nice book that I want to refer our listeners to called Patriarchs and Prophets. And it was saying this guy had always been irreverent. And the fact that he saw his father, it was just a reflection of who he was. It's not that it was a mistake, he just did that. It was just a reflection of the character of who he was. And God was predicting that among his children, Canaan, he was going to follow in the footsteps of his father. And because of that, he was going to be a servant.
It's strange that the father was drunk, and by implication from the text, he wasn't aware of what was happening during his episode of passing out. But then it says that he came to know. And to me, that also says something about Ham's brothers in how they related to their brother. And was it really necessary for Noah to come to know that? Look, Baba, when you were, this one, I mean, it speaks something about the characters even of...
but maybe you wanted to know where this cloth that was covering...
we covered.
Where does this cloth come
we covered
from?
you with
You never covered your brother's sins.
It's okay. Let's go to Genesis chapter 10. We see a whole chapter being dedicated to explaining the genealogy. Yes, like the whole chapter in essence is talking about that. What is the purpose of this genealogy? Why is it placed like the whole chapter is just talking about the son of who and the son of what?
First, it shows that, when I was checking the generations, these guys were not far from creation itself.
Okay.
Because if you check Enoch is said to be the seventh. That is from
Adam.
Enoch is the seventh generation, as there are 6 other patriarchs before him. And then Enoch is the father of Methuselah. Methuselah, who then begat Lamech. And Lamech is the father of Noah. So you can see there is about 10th generation. So they were not very far from creation. And they should have heard about even the stories of nakedness that came because people ate. And then this one drank and he became also naked. And so maybe it was to link for us to realize that they should have been told about the history of the world and the like. And secondly, it also shows that they are real people. Because you hear that he knew his wife and begat so and so. And so they are real people that are in the Bible. No wonder why Jason was saying that the Bible doesn't try to bring the hero only in these people. It tells us even the bad that they did. Unfortunately for you and me, the moment we find that, we feel comfortable. Even Noah drank as well.
I can always Jason,
also.
let me send you to Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 to 4. I need you to read that for me. I think we are now close to the peak of the lesson.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm reading from the New English Translation, Genesis 11, verse 1 to 4. The whole earth had a common language and a common vocabulary. When the people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. Then they said to one another, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They had brick instead of stone and tar instead of mortar. Then they said, "Come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered across the face of the entire earth."
Now, what I want to know is, last week when we were talking about the flood, we talked much about the character of God in that. Now, when those people were building this thing, what was their perception of God and what drove them, the motive behind building this very nice, huge structure?
They wanted to cancel God. because they sound, when they're talking here, they sound like God.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the earlier chapters, they sound like God in Genesis 1 and 2. So come, let's make this, and they want a tower with its top in the heavens. So they want to invade heaven, and so they look at God and they think him not worth it. I guess perhaps from looking at it that way, it would mean it's possible that there were some who said, look, there isn't any God anyway, so we should be God. It's possible there are others who said, well, the God who's there shouldn't be God anyway, so we should be God too. And they found common ground there and started building. And I can't remember who said it. I was watching him on news, and I was in high school back then. And he was an architect, and he said anybody who builds a building that is more than 8 stories, that is taller than 8 stories, is doing it to make a statement, to say something. So it kind of fits in here. It's, the tower. I want to build a tower to make a statement about ourselves, not to make a statement about God. And that's very dangerous. Even today, churches that have a mission are dangerous.
Churches that what?
That have a mission, very dangerous. I know that sounds weird when I say it.
Yeah, you need.
It's because the problem with people like that is they think anything they do is justified because of their mission, and they become very brutal in prosecuting their mission. But when you look at the Bible, the mission is God's, and he calls us to join in his mission, which is different. Because when we say we have a mission, and you can hear that, the language of we're making a name for ourselves.
So God has a mission, and we are part of that mission.
To join, I want to join your mission.
That's what he's saying. I also find their behavior, if I look at it from this perspective, there was a flood, which was caused by God. And to start with, others are saying, no, that was a natural phenomenon. And we need a disaster response system. And that disaster response system is, let's say, a tower. Actually, in actual fact, I was reading somewhere, I think it's that book that I referred to. They were saying they wanted to build a tower that goes, they saw the level to which the water reached. Maybe the top of Mount Ararat. Say ours should at least go above that as a data response system. And secondly, there was a flood. The only way to have survived the flood was to be in the ark. And the ark was provided by God. But we wanted to survive. Let's have our own initiative. So it became a symbol of righteousness by our own works, or righteousness by our own efforts. To say this is God's way to escape the flood. But I wanted to construct our own. And also, it's also a denial, because God had said, I'm no longer going to destroy the world with rain. So the fact that you don't believe in the first place that it was God. So we can't listen to those fables. Let's be prepared, guys. So you will notice that the issue of Babylon will come back even when we get to Daniel and get to the book of Revelation. Why? Because it became a symbol of salvation by own effort, salvation outside of God.
God's plan.
Even political leaders who are utopianists, is that the term? People who say, I want to build a utopia for everyone, are the most
dangerous ones.
They are the most oppressive people. I can think of in history people like Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler, who, when you listen to what they say they wanted to bring about, but when you look at what they did, they felt that the utopia they wanted to bring about it justified the terrible things that they did. But having said that, those aren't the worst kind. The worst kind are the religious ones. The ones who want to bring about a religious utopia are even worse than the non-religious guys who want to bring about a utopia. If you look at the example of what the church did over the centuries, the atrocities, the torture chambers, the instruments of torture they came up with because they were trying to build a utopia, testify to the kind of the poison that was at play here in Babel.
Oh, yeah.
So I was going to say also there are undertones in trying to understand the character of the people that wanted to build the tower. I think that's where your question was initially, to say what was their frame of mind. I think when we read from different versions of the Bible, it talks about the tower being built at the plains of Shinar or Babylonia. Some versions of the Bible call it Babylonia. And will then say that the frame of mind of the people that built this tower was influenced greatly by the king of Babylon. Okay. And the Bible actually quotes the king of Babylon in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13 and verse 14. For you say to yourself, I will ascend to heaven and set my throne above God's stars. I will preside on the mountain of the gods, far away from in the north. Verse 14, I will climb to the highest heavens and be like the Most High. And Jason already alluded to their language when they say, come, now let us build a tower that reaches up to heaven. And funny enough, he was saying also that it was so high that God still had to say, let's go down and see that thing that they are. Yet it was so high and filthy rags. Their righteousness was just filthy rags, I want to say. So they were influenced by the king of Babylonia to do what only the king of Babylon wants to do, to rise above the seat of God. And I want to just be rhetoric and say to ourselves, as Seventh-day Adventists, we know we have a mission.
I'm sure they have a mission.
Yes, we know we have a mission that is God-given. Okay. We need to be worried that at any point we may misstep and lose the aspect of the God-given mission and have a mission that's meant to create a name for Adventists. A mission that whenever we're tempted to think of ourselves as better than all other people, I think we are losing it. Whenever we want to think of ourselves as being more numerous than anyone else, whenever we want to think of ourselves as being more this than anyone else,
want to defend.
I don't think that is the mission that God has given to any one of us. And we've only been called to be witnesses. And very often we are defenders and not witnesses. And I think we may at such times be at the verge of misstepping, as it were, and having a mission of our own.
Oh, yes.
But also there's another thing in what they said here. It says, otherwise we will be scattered across the face of the entire earth. But when you look at what God said after the flood, he said, no, you guys should spread out.
Be scattered across the face of the
spread out. And no, we don't want to be spread out. We want to centralize. And every time people centralize stuff, you can be sure nothing good will come of it.
Congregating in large numbers.
Yeah, and not wanting to spread out. God always, no, spread out. And it's something humans do, because you notice even when Christ said to the church when he left, he said, no, I'm going home, I'm going to heaven now. While you guys need to start to spread out. You start with Samaria, and then you go to the rest. And they didn't, they kept congregating. So, if you don't listen the nice way, then you listen the hard way. You learn the hard way, and persecution came, they spread out. We as Seventh-day Adventists in our early days as well tended to congregate too much around Battle Creek. There was a fire, something got burnt down, we wanted to build something bigger, and God spoke to us and said, no, don't build something bigger, decentralize, spread out. So God always wants us to spread out. Even during lockdown, people for the first time, a lot of people for the first time in years found that they had to take responsibility for their own spirituality. And I know some people who said, one cousin of mine said to me, I was actually surprised to find that my son is a good preacher. So God always wants us to spread out, decentralize stuff.
Now, 11 verse 5, Genesis 11 verse 5, it says, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have got one language. On all this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. What is the meaning of God coming down?
It's humor. I think, honestly, I think the Bible writers were the best storytellers around. In just a few words, they exposed the inadequacy of
Human effort.
of their project. I was speaking to somebody recently. We're chatting about organizational structure, and he said to me, when you make an organization too rigid, when you centralize things, everything, and it becomes brittle, and one small thing can reduce it to powder. These guys are supposedly building a tower to take on God, but they were disturbed. They failed because of something as useless as different languages. I mean, even today, we speak different languages. It's a challenge, but we've learned to find ways around it. My training is in electronics. We have electronic diagrams that anybody can read, no matter what the language is. But these guys, these so-called brilliant guys, were building a tower. Couldn't find a way around different languages, and they dispersed.
Okay. Yeah, maybe to just take it up from what my two colleagues have said, that one thing that it shows us is that they were still very far from reaching where they wanted to go, which is a lesson to you and me, that sometimes our Babylons, the Babylons that we build, or the towers that we build at Babel, the Babels that we build, the towers that we build at Babel, to try and circumvent God's ways. Maybe you are trying to protect yourself from the flood by your own ways. I'm saying we are trying to save ourselves. Our efforts become so far from reaching where they should be. And secondly, it also shows me that God doesn't just send a punishment. No, there is a message for judgment that comes here. The process of judgment, that before God sends a judgment, he has to come down and investigate and be satisfied that we need to intervene here. And you also notice that humans can unite. But if they are united on a wrong thing, no, unity is okay. I always want to put it to our modern. Unity is okay. But unfortunately, if we are united on a wrong thing, then that unity becomes useless. So unity is not everything.
Yes.
Yeah. The fact that the church is united, it doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
It could be united on a wrong thing. And finally, in the end, we see that undertones of that, where all religions are saying, why should we be separated? We have got more common things than the things that separate us. For example, someone could be wondering right now, probably you are just separated by a day of worship. Maybe we are just separated by a way of worship. These ones dance, these ones don't dance, these ones play drums, these ones don't play drums. And we find those things to be small things. But if we become united, and for your information, in the end, that's what the devil will be trying to do, to bring us together and unite on a wrong thing. So our unity should not be on our opposition to God. If we are being united by putting aside that which God required, then we are going to be doomed.
We are going to fail.
So, Kwacha, it's easy for unity to be removed from the mix at any time. You know, it can be language, like Jason was labor to explain that language actually. But at any point, this unity can be brought in by anything. It can fail on language, it can fail on race, it can fail on a number of these other superficial criteria that humans have devised and used to separate themselves one from the other. But it can also be class. It can easily be class, one class regarding itself as better than the other and so forth. And that serves to draw back more than to advance the gospel. But he said that if united for a good reason, then it's useful even for the gospel. And immediately to my mind comes the first church, the first Christian church, when in Acts we hear of the brethren being of one mind. And I think they were of one mind, in as much as the guys who endeavored to build the Tower of Babel were of one mind. But now, the motive behind what they wanted to do, it doesn't mean that their individuality had been done away with in the book of Acts there, but they were of one mind in terms of the purpose for which they had assembled themselves together and the purpose for which they had united themselves together. So you find that in the idea of Acts, it was more of the gospel speaking many languages of the world.
Okay.
And not the many languages of the world speaking it shouldn't be vice versa, but what should go ahead of all should be the gospel, the good news. And I think that was a missing ingredient even in the building of the Tower of Babel, where the builders sought their own agenda, united as they may have been, to whatever extent, even though I'm inclined to believe that there must have been a remnant that did not subscribe to the Babel kind of thinking. And that also ties in well with the genealogies that are presented in chapter 10. They sort of present a stage for us to then be able later on to see how there was this division, where there was this remnant that came out, and these were the sons of so and so, and they actually came out to be different from the rest of the Babel Tower builders, as it were.
And I pray God dismantles all our towers of Babel. I like this part. God is willing to intervene when our ideas get too dumb. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing that dynasties fall, because if they continue forever, we need a break. So if you follow history, dynasties rise and they fall. Okay, let's get some new oppressors in. Let's not have the same old ones. Let's try something different. And another thing I like about God's unity is different from these guys' unity, because He's able to bring about unity even though we're different. In fact, if we were all the same, unity would be impossible. It's hard to imagine, but if you're really honest with yourself and you think about it, how long could you live with someone who was exactly like you? You got your doppelganger, and not just in looks, but in the way you think and see things. How long would you last? And the fact is, it is when we come together that we give each other balance, because some of us are strong where others are weak. And some of us are weak where others are strong. So it presents, you have to have different pieces to come. The same piece can't really join with the same one. And
yet instead of those differences being celebrated and being a source of impetus for us to move forward,
we want the one language and the same vocabulary.
Yeah, and then we tend to like bring it closer home. We tend to then persecute those that are of a different language. Let's start a bit further from home in South Africa next door, where people are being persecuted for their origins or their language. And one of the politicians there was saying, no, we cannot actually celebrate the killings of foreigners in this country, or the discrimination against foreigners in this country, because once those that are doing the discrimination are done with the foreigners, then they are coming for those that are speaking a language different from theirs. Never mind that you are from within the same polity or country. And I'm saying, even let's step into Zimbabwe right now. You find that people have this warped belief system that this one is dumb because they belong to this tribal grouping, and I'm elite because I belong to this tribal grouping, and then that even finds itself even inside the church. You find people cannot really relate on a genuine Christian brother to Christian brother kind of relationship without removing the warped goggles of seeing ethnic differences between one and the other. And we fail even to see that this is actually not a result of something brilliant, but it's actually something that was brought in at the tower. It's part of the whole confusion kind of
So
thing.
maybe we can't get around our differences because we're all building our own towers.
Yeah.
We need
We have the same attitude.
we need to get out of Babylon.
Genesis chapter 11, verse 8. So the Lord scattered them abroad, and from this upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Why was God's dispensation redemptive? Why was it the best option?
Yeah. So you notice, maybe someone has already mentioned it, that there were others that were really believing in God. But you know, sometimes when everyone else is united and you are not agreeing with them, the tendency is that you are then a subject of persecution, or you are a subject of censure, as it were. So to start with, God wanted to make sure that everyone would move and make their own decision outside of that. And also, God wanted to bring out a remnant that could show the rest of the world a light. So, and I want us to notice that the idea of a remnant is actually there. And soon after chapter 11, we get to chapter 12, where Abraham is called to leave and to go out. And also God saw that if he had left these people as they were, united as they were in their wrong thing, the world was going to go into a serious immorality. And God wanted, remember this is a great controversy. So God was waiting for evil to fully manifest itself. So he wanted to make sure that evil does not multiply so fast. This is my thinking. If they were united in what they are doing, evil was going to multiply so fast that even the character of the devil was not going to be manifested. How is the character of the devil manifested? By having an Israel and having the others who are Gentiles, so to say. And Israel was supposed to be then what God could point to say, look at my people who are faithful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So to quote the book of the day, Patriarchs and Prophets, page 123, this dispensation was also redemptive because Ellen White says that God saw that because these children of Noah were so determined to build a kingdom, so very much independent of him and so very much against everything that he stood for as God. If he had left that core unchecked, then the level of degradation would have been maybe faster than in the first 10 generations that had actually led to the flood. So this dispensation was actually redemptive, not just for them, but also even for you and me, because that's actually, this dispensation is actually the vehicle for the spread of the gospel, as it were.
Have you ever sat in a group of people and listen to one member of the group talk as if he's going to protect everyone from a bad idea, bad doctrine or something? And have you ever wondered to yourself, well, it's all good that you're going to protect us from those bad ideas, but who's going to protect us from you? You know, nobody, it doesn't matter how smart you are. No one person is smarter than the community.
The collective.
Yeah, the collective. That's why there's I think it's an English saying that says, you can fool some of the people some of the time. You know, but you can never fool all the people all the time.
All the time.
The problem with centralization is that an elite emerges, and this elite crushes everybody out. But they're never smart enough to navigate the complexity of life. And so when you decentralize stuff, you give everyone an opportunity to have responsibility for their own life. So that's why I said, I hope God smashes all our towers so we can spread out.
Oh, yeah. We've come to the end of our lesson. Probably I'll give each one of you half a minute to wrap up everything, and then we close the lesson.
The stories in Genesis are a precursor of what will happen in the end of the world. So it could be the story of Babel today, but it will manifest itself in the end with a different structure, but same objective. Men finding salvation out of God. And the good thing is that a remnant are going to be called out. And you and me, it can be the remnant if we still find God relevant in our own lives.
Amen.
The most dangerous tower is the tower in the mirror.
Yourself.
Yeah, more or less like what he said, but we need to daily, individually strive to get out of Babylon. Unfortunately, maybe we have been fixated into thinking more of institutional Babylon and have failed to see that Babylon does exist even at our individual levels. And we must strive to get out of that Babylon.
Amen. Viewers, we've come to the end of this week's lesson. Thank you for studying with us, and for now we shall pray. Dear Father in heaven, we want to thank you for the lesson that was before us. We want to thank you for your character, which is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. May you help us through the Holy Spirit to derive lessons that are going to help us in this time and even as we are preparing for the second coming. We pray all this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.